So my circle of friends and I do a lot of work around not taking things personally, not letting things get to us, letting go of things relatively quickly, because by nature, it's not what happens, right? We don't tend to do that. So from birth, we've been absorbing information, we've been trained, programmed, taught, conditioned to think, feel, respond, and participate in a particular way. And it is our meaning. And I always think about meaning with it starting with a capital M-E. It is my view. It's my view of life. It's the way that I see the world. If I was born in a different country, different parents, different circle of influences, my meaning would be completely different, right? I would not look at the world the same way. And I need to be conscious of that. And that's the reason that we do tend to get hurt, because the way that we've developed our self, our physical self, our mental self, all of these things have come about over time. And they're really a collective. It's a collective of all of our experiences, all of our thoughts, all of our teachings, and all of this comes into us, and it really ends up being the reason that we get hurt, because it's the value that we place on other things. And in the newsletter, I used a very simple example that if somebody says, hey, I love squash casserole, well, it's their meaning. It's what they love. It's the meaning that they've attributed to that. Whereas me, I'm going to say squash casserole is the worst. Why would anybody even eat that? That doesn't even make sense. It's my meaning. Neither one of those are more correct. They simply are what they are. And that's what we have to think about. So when we get our feelings hurt, who is actually at fault? Now, it's pretty easy to say, well, it's that person. They're the one that hurt me. But whose meaning did they hurt? They hurt mine. Intentionally, unintentionally. They hurt what I intentionally, unintentionally, consciously, unconsciously created over time, right? And so we've got to be conscious of that if we're going to be able to let go of some of these things. So, handful of things today. Number one, realizing that we do get hurt through this collection of meaning. Our worldview, the way that we look at things, ends up becoming our belief system. And our beliefs, our belief about things out there, and our belief of things in here is what causes these difficulties. So that when I look out and I see injustice, it could be 100% true injustice. Or it could simply be injustice because that's what that means to me. It's my belief, and it's the way that I see the world, and it's through my lens. Have you ever talked to a friend and you're not on the same page at all? You're not on the same page religiously. You're not on the same page politically. All of those things seem to be different. It's because you place a different meaning on that world. And then the things that we let in. The meaning, not only how we see things, but how we receive things makes a difference as well. The way that somebody says something to us, what do we immediately think? How do we immediately feel? A lot of that has been trained. And if it's been trained, if it's been learned, it can be untrained. It can be unlearned if it is unhealthy. And if it's unhealthy, why wouldn't we want to change that? And so the next series of things that we look at are kind of some tools and techniques to help us do that. But here's the real question. Do you want to change? Actually want to change? Because there are a lot of people who say, I don't want to feel this way. I'm tired of getting hurt. I'm tired of caring what other people think about me. But they actually don't do the work to change. And I know that can seem a little bit frustrating because we all say, I do want to change. But I can tell you through the years, even close friends that say, I want to do this work, end up not doing it. Not simply because it's easier to get hurt, but there's something that wants to be hurt. Because then their life, their situation, it's not my fault. It's what happened out there. It happened out there. And they hurt me. And they sit in it. And they wallow in it forever. So we're going to basically hit, why we do this. What can we, how can we receive this differently? What do we need to do? What steps do we need to take? how long we can sit in it, things along those lines when it comes to someone or a situation that we feel hurt us. Now then, caveat. This is not for abusive situations or clinical situations. This is for people that for the most part we're healthy. We're just having a tough time letting go of some mental constructs, a tough time of letting go of the words of other people, a tough time of not taking a situation and blowing it up in our head. So if you're in an abuse situation, get help. If you're in a clinical situation, your mind's not racing like a healthy mind would race, but it's inventing dangerous scenarios, get help. So these practices are assuming that you are a healthy person who can take responsibility for yourself. That's the disclaimer. And this still may not be fun. I think it's super fun. So we collect all of these things. So 3 ways to become more meaningless, get hurt by people less, and take things less personally. All right, 3 ways to do that. All 3 of these ways include work, and there are really a lot of questions. And so let's say a situation happens, somebody hurts my feelings, and they said something that I'm not able to let go of immediately, or a situation at work occurs that I'm having trouble with, which is so easy to happen. Something seems unfair, or the promised promotion doesn't come through, or the bonus is not as much as it was promised. It's hard not to take that personal, or especially if you see it happen for somebody else, but it doesn't happen to you. So number 1 are why questions. Number 2 are what questions. Number 3 are when questions. So number 1, sit down with paper. Got to write this down. Why is this affecting me so deeply? Why is this affecting me so deeply? I need to write that down. I need to write everything down. Well, because I don't really like that person, or it was unfair, or I was in a vulnerable moment, or I thought this was going to be the outcome and it wasn't, or I thought that person was my friend. So write down everything of why this is affecting me so deeply. It could be I'm sensitive right now. I've always been affected by this. It could be a childhood thing. I've done inner child work, and it turns out that every time that this situation comes up, it's a trigger for me. Be exhaustive. Don't simply say, well, they hurt my feelings and it's their fault and they this and they. Don't spend time on the theys. Maybe 1 or 2 they. Most of this time should be spent on me and on I, because it's really about me. It's really about I. It's not about the other person. There could be a million reasons why they did or said what they did, but that has nothing to do with you. You don't know where they are. You don't know their meaning. You only know yours, and you only construct yours. So why is this affecting me so deeply? Why does this have meaning for me? Why is this meaning filled for me? And lock in on that and discover it. It could be because truth is, I'm super insecure. I feel worthless. I've felt unwanted a lot of my life, and that made me feel unwanted. I've felt abandoned a lot of my life, and that made me feel abandoned. It's fine to recognize those feelings. This is not act like nothing happened or that you didn't feel anything and just let it go. You shouldn't even felt that. You've got to validate the feelings. You've got to validate the why in these things if we're going to be able to do this work. And what happens is once we start thinking about this and even feeling it, it gets us out of our head, which is our imagination, which is highly creative, which goes down all kinds of roads that aren't even real. It's so inventive. And it's our self, it's our ego protecting us. And you can even say that. You can start your practice with, first of all, ego, our self, our me. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for recognizing this pain. I want to thank you for bringing this to my attention. Let's work on this. Thank them for that. Thank yourself for that. And then get to the bottom of this why. And just keep asking why over and over and over again. You may want to take an hour or more to do this. What I would not advise you to do is just walk around with it all day in your head, thinking about it. And if you don't have time in the moment to work on it, set a time, set a date. If you saw the Monkey Mind video, then set a time and date to do the exercise, do the work. So if me and you were talking and you had an issue and I said, go and do this. And later that day, you're like, man, I just can't let that go. It just bugs me so much what they said to me. I'd say, show me your sheet, show me your work, show me your pages. And if you didn't have them, no offense, I think you don't actually want to let it go. Or I may say, what time are you going to be working on that? I don't have time. Okay, you want to hold on to it. I know that doesn't sound right. But I know in my life, if I'm not letting it go, it's because I'm wanting to hold on to it for some reason. All right, beat that one enough, I guess. Number 2, what, if anything, does this have to do with me? What, if anything, does this have to do with me? It could be all that person. It could be all that company. It could be all outside yourself and have nothing to do with you at all. You took it personally, but they could be having a bad day. And it could be a bad situation in their life. And you just happen to come across their plate at the perfect time for you to be the target. And it's got nothing to do with you whatsoever. What does this have to do with me? And you need to find out if it does. You need to find that out. Because either you let it go and say, hey, that doesn't have anything to do with me, or you go and ask. You go and ask the sender, what does this have to do with me? Let me go and find out from the person who said this, what is this about? What's this about? And don't get angry. Don't go in a huff. If you're anger prone, pull back first, reset. If you're sarcasm prone like I am, reset. But go and ask, what did this have to do with me? I do believe we have got a personal responsibility to go and find out. And here's why. And we're going to talk about, how long we get to hold on to something in a second. But here's my personal feeling. There's a limited window to that ask. So in my life, through the years, I've had people come to me and say, Paul, I've been mad at you for X number of years. Or I've been hurt about something that you said 2 years ago. That has zero to do with me at this point. We're so far away from the altercation, from my verbal assault, that number one, I probably don't even remember it. I've had people bring up situations that I've just got no clue about. And in the moment, we could have done something about it. We could have worked on it. I could have heard, I could have listened, we could have healed. But instead, they invented a scenario, invented a long-term hurt. It became meaning-filled for them over the long term. And I really have nothing to do with that. In fact, when you hurt somebody else, intentionally or unintentionally, intentionally is a little bit different, but unintentionally, and they hold on to it forever. Because how many things did you mean to hurt somebody with that you didn't feel anymore after a week? You didn't feel that way after 2 weeks. But they held on to it for years. Should you have said it? Should I have said it? Well, no. But it was said. And we've either got to work on it or do something about it, or we've just got to move on from it. So ask the sender. If you're not asking, you're choosing to hold it and let it fester and let it become whatever. And you need to write that down. I'm not going to ask the person. I'm going to sit here in this and let it rot inside me. Just write that down. Just be honest. You don't have to go and ask. Just accept responsibility that my rot and my ruin is my fault. We don't like it, but that to me is my meaning. That's my truth. And so that's the way I approach these things. And then finally, when do I let this go? When? Why is this affecting me so deeply? What, if anything, does this have to do with me? What should I do, if anything? When do I let this go? Write down a date and time. If you need to, have a certain amount of time with it, great. No problem. I'm going to hold on to this a week. I tend to set a 24-hour timer and say, I'm going to give myself 24 hours on this. I also let my friends know, if you keep hearing this come up, if this is recurring, call that out. One of my friends will say, yeah, you know what? You were really low vibe on that. That was not you. That's not who you are. What is it about that? Why is this recurring? Why does this keep coming up? And so deeper work has to be done at that point, right? So we've got to be conscious of all of these things. So how do we get hurt less by other people? We do the work to recognize why this is meaningful, what this really has to do with me, and when I'm going to let go of it. And we set a new training in place. And the new training is, I'm going to assess over and over and over again. And what you start finding out when you do the work and you assess situations that hurt you and harm you, or at least you feel like they do, because that's the meaning, you begin to change the meaning. And that would be the final step, if there is one, is to say, what new meaning should this have? Maybe put that under the what questions of number one, or number two. What new meaning should this have? When someone comes at me in this way, what new meaning should it be? In another video, we're going to talk about how not to care so much about whatever other people think, because this sometimes has a lot to do with self-esteem and personal security and confidence. And we're going to cover a lot more about that in the next video. If you hadn't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications. Till next time, be blessed.